Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm from Your Black World and the BlackBusinessSchool.com. I was sitting here working today, and I was getting some stuff done on a Sunday. I know it's Fourth of July weekend, and I guess maybe I'm supposed to be eating barbecue or chilling or something like that. But I'm gonna tell you, when you really get to a point where you like what you do, you don't really need a vacation to get away from your work. It's almost like being a parent. If you're a parent, parents sometimes need a break, no question about it. But they don't mind being a parent every day when they love their kids and stuff like that. And so anyway, um, one thing I want to mention to you is that if you want to buy the entire Hidden Colors series, I recommend that you uh, do this because I think this should be in everybody's house. I just think Tariq has created something so special that you know it's something that everybody should support. I think it's also something that should just be kind of a part of the curriculum. If you want to learn blackness, and get a perspective on blackness. Again, this isn't the only point of view on blackness, but if you want a perspective, then I think that his film really gives you that. Hidden Colors 4, actually, I was in Hidden Colors 4, and Tariq came to my house, and we filmed right there in that living room. And that was when I got a chance to really speak to the brother in person. Before that, I'd only met Tariq one time in the airport, really a coincidence. And but me, talking to him in person was enlightening in terms of how good films are made, how they can be made at a reasonable cost, how we can build a black Hollywood. And then in LA, I brought him over to Damon Dash's office. And so Damon and I were meeting, and Tariq came by. And seeing Tariq and Damon interact was really interesting too. They're both, they have a lot of similarities. Let me see here. So one thing I want to share with you guys is that if you order the Hidden Colors series, you can go to, if you want to order, you can go to hiddencolors1234.com. That's hiddencolors1234.com, just the numbers. Um, and that's where Tariq can tell you. Also included in the order, you can actually get a lecture by Tariq where he actually talks about how he built his company. And so I think that's the part that is kind of missing for black folks, is that we see a lot of people that we admire, a lot of people who accomplish things, but they don't always tell us exactly how they did it. Tariq actually came into the Black Business School and talked about how he did it. You
So I
also
think
had,
that's the part
give me
that
one second,
is kind of
guys.
missing for black
I
folks
got to
is
turn
that
down this audio. So anyway, as you know, I've started doing a few of these live streams every now and then. It's kind of a different style. A lot of times, I would do quick hits on video, but I kind of like this format because I can answer your questions, get a chance to let you see me in person, and I can respond to you in real time, and I actually think it's kind of fun. And now I see that looking here, and I see Janisha says that Tariq Nasheed is a hater of black women. That's interesting. One of the things that actually came up today, I had kind of a public thing where I made a kind of a somewhat public statement about my relationship with different people, whether it's Umar Johnson, Tariq, Zaza Ali, Damon Dash, even people like Minister Farrakhan, and others. And one of the things that I mentioned is that just because you partner with people doesn't mean you have to kind of be in alignment with everything they say. Anybody who sort of follows the way Tariq and I interact, will know that Tariq and I have not always seen eye to eye on everything. There are a lot of issues where I might say, you know what, I can't get on board with that, brother. Or he might say, I heard him say one time, I saw something. Somebody said, did you see where Tariq Nasheed dissed you, man? Did you see where he dissed you? I was like, no, show me what you're talking about. So I checked it out, and there was a point where he talked about something that I did, and he was like, oh, that's a bad look for Boyce. And I think it had to do with Maria Lloyd, who went on our channel and actually said some things about Umar Johnson that were problematic. And and I just told Tariq, I said, well, I allow for all different points of view to be on the table because I'm not afraid of dissension. I'm not afraid of a difference in opinion. And Maria made her remarks, and Maria has a right as a woman to speak. I think sometimes we have people that just kind of think women can't think unless a man's telling them what to think. And I hate that. It drives me crazy. I just, I mean, I guess because I just can't imagine living in that world, because I had too many powerful women around me for me to ever think that somehow women were less capable intellectually than men. Um, and I think that, generally speaking, we got to think about how we treat our women, because, you got to understand that, a lot of the fuel for white feminists comes from disgruntled black women. They go to that black woman who's been mistreated by men, who's been disrespected, and they say, you see, look at those barbarian black men, and look at how they're treating you. Do you really want to, be around that? And so some of these women become extreme feminists because maybe they were abused by a black man, maybe they were abandoned by a black man, maybe their father wasn't around, maybe they've been hurt and disappointed by black men, and I just think it's up to us as the decent black men to make sure we let women know there's a diversity of men. I think any kind of argument that you make that leads to the conclusion that an entire gender is flawed, that, like, that all black men are just this, or all black women are just that, that's just wrong. I mean, that's wrong. You can't stereotype 20 million people. I mean, seriously, and so and I hear from both sides. I mean, if I say something to the sisters and I say, something like, make sure, that, let's say I say something like, make sure that if you meet the right man, that you are also the right woman, that you appreciate him, that you show him a certain kind of respect. Men like to be respected, on average, from what I've seen. Men, being loved is important too, but men really like to be respected. So if you disrespect a man, you berate him, you talk smack about him, you make him feel worse about his mistakes, he's gonna resent you. He's gonna have an issue with you. And when I say that, some women will say, that's right, I agree. But then a lot of women will flip it and say, well, what about the men? Tell the men they need to do this, they need to do that. I'm like, no, we ain't talking about the men right now. We're talking about the women. And that's the problem. People don't have the ability to look at themselves. They always want to point the finger. They always want to say, there's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with the world. There's something wrong with everybody else. So then let's say I flip it. Let's say I go on my page and I say, look, brothers, make sure you respect black women. Let's not talk down to them. Let's show them how much we love them. First thing I hear is some brother, well, Dr. Boyce, why ain't you talking about the women? Why aren't you talking about what these women out here doing? Da, da, da. I'm like, we ain't talking about the women, man. We're talking about you. We're talking about you. You can't make every woman be her best self, but you can certainly decide to be your best self. You have that option. And so I think that that's where the maturity comes in. Maybe it's because, now I'm in my 40s and I have a perspective I didn't have in my 20s and 30s, and I know sometimes we all get hurt, we all get disappointed, so we all kind of want to look at the world, and the first instinct is to say, what's wrong with the world? I'm such a good person. Why would people do this to me? And everybody feels like they're a good person. Even bad people feel like they're a good person, that they're always a victim. And I just don't believe in that per se. I think that I think that making anything work, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship, comes down to your ability to manage relationships. I think that if you are a person who had a bad relationship with your opposite sex parent, like if you're a man who hated his mother, then you got to be very careful, because there's a very good chance that you may end up hating a lot of women, because the minute a trigger goes off that reminds you of something that your mother did, then you're going to revert to that, and you're going to think, oh, well, this is how all women are. And the same thing is true for a woman. A lot of black women, the first man that ever loved them wasn't there. He wasn't, something happened, something went wrong. And because of that, they carry a type of baggage that says, I'm a good person. All people have to do is look beneath the surface. All people have to do is do what I say, and I'll show them I'm a good person. But the minute somebody shows you they're less than perfect, a trigger goes off. Boom. You remind me of my daddy, my piece of shit daddy. You ain't shit neither, just like my daddy. And next thing you know, your relationship falls apart, because a relationship requires durability. And these are things I think about a lot, because I wrote a book called Financial Lovemaking that actually talks about money and relationships, and what relationships work out and which ones don't. And I don't know if you guys know this, but did you know that that scientists can tell whether or not your relationship is going to last or if it's going to fail with very high accuracy by listening to you argue for like 10 minutes. All they got to do is listen to you argue for 10 minutes, and that will tell them almost everything they need to know about whether your relationship is going to last. Because it ain't about having disagreements. Everybody has disagreements. It's about how you handle them. If somebody comes at you with fire, do you come back with hot grease and more fire? Or do you come back with water to diffuse the situation? Do you escalate the situation, or do you diffuse it? If you feel disrespected, do you say, well, this is how you made me feel, and I just want to make this better? Do you respond that way, or do you come back with, oh hell no, motherfucker, you ain't gonna, whatever? It's all about how you respond. It's all about how you deal with your disagreements. Because I've never been in any kind of romantic relationship or business relationship that didn't have issues. And I think that some people end up spending their lives looking for something that doesn't exist. They do. They spend their lives looking for the perfect relationship that will never have any issues. And every time it's like chewing a piece of gum. It's like when I was a little kid and I used to like Bubblicious, and I would buy a pack of Bubblicious and I would chew the Bubblicious until the sugar ran out, and then I would spit it out and get a new piece. And so for so I never intended on keeping a piece of gum in my mouth for the rest of my life. I would just chew it until the sugar ran out and then spit it out and put in a new piece. Well, some people do their relationships like that. They tell you, well, you know what I'm doing. So what you see is they'll pick a relationship, be in it for 6, 7 months, maybe a year, and then something will go wrong. Oh, I thought he was wonderful, but he's a motherfucker, and then you start over again. Another relationship. Oh, I found the one. Oh wait, I thought he was the one, but it turns out he's a motherfucker. So you flip it over and you start all over again. Oh, I think I found the one. Oh, I thought he was the one, but he's a motherfucker. So I'm gonna start all over again, right? And in a way, it reminds me of when I used to get the Bubblicious and I would chew it till the sugar ran out, and then I would just get a new piece. So, but the difference is, instead of saying telling it for what it is, instead of saying like, look, I'm just chewing the gum until the sugar runs out, and I'm just gonna get a new piece. People will say, I'm spending my life looking. I would keep the gum in my mouth, but I haven't found the piece where the sugar never runs out. I've never found that magic piece of gum that, like in Willy Wonka, the everlasting gobstopper. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but I haven't found the piece of gum that's gonna last, where the sugar's gonna last for the rest of my life, right? So the thing is, what you're doing is you're kind of looking for something that probably doesn't exist. So you're looking for that relationship where it's never gonna go wrong. The person's never gonna disappoint you. They're never gonna hurt your feelings. Everything's will always be perfect, and that relationship doesn't exist. So it's better if you're seeking perfection. It's actually easier to find relationship perfection by just starting over fresh every time something goes wrong, right? Like almost like a disposable clothes. Like if I really don't ever want my clothes to get dirty, all I gotta do is buy a new outfit every week, and I'm gonna always have clean clothes. If I never want my car to get old, all I gotta do is just use rental cars, drive a rental car for a couple months, get me a new one, and that's kind of what happens. I think that people do that with their relationships now, especially since there's not as much of a stigma and things like divorce and stuff like that. It's like they just kind of go from one person to the next, and the thing is that new person typically isn't any better than the last person. It's just in your mind they seem better because they don't have a faulty track record, because you don't know anything about them. They have a clean slate in your mind. So because the slate is clean, you're like, oh, this person is perfect. But guess what? Imagine if every time you met a new person, you were able to see an entire database, like a resume, like a credit report, like a file on them, on every relationship they've had, and all the reviews, all the customer reviews on every relationship that this person's ever had. And then you compare that person to the person you just dumped. So for example, like I knew a lady who said, she said I had to dump that motherfucker. And I said, why'd you dump that guy? I said, he was a nice dude. And she said, cause he cheated. I said, really? He cheated? Oh man, that's bad. I said, how many times did he cheat? She said, he cheated 3 times. I said 3 times in how many years? She said, about 6 years. I said, wow, that is cool. That is messed up. Like, he's had sex with 3 girls in 6 years. And so she started dating a new guy, and I said, how many girls do you think he's had sex with in the last 6 years? Because I think she said something like, like, oh well, I'm worried about my health, because if somebody cheats on you, they're putting your health in jeopardy. And I said, okay, so you met a new guy. I said, do you think he's had sex with more than 3 girls in the last 6 years? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe it's because you're not thinking about that. But with your ex, you're thinking about how many girls he was with because he was with you, right? But this new guy, I bet he's had sex with. He's a good-looking guy, and I can tell he looks like he's a ladies' man. I said, I bet he's probably had sex with 3 girls in the last like 6 months. And so if it's just a health issue, if it's all about the health, then it seems to me that you'd rather. I'm the same myself. I would rather be with the girl who's had sex with 3 other guys in the last 6 years than the girl who's had sex with 20. And so anyway, I'm not trying to get all up into sex and talk about people's bedrooms, but I think that relationships are interesting to talk about and think about, because you can't really, when I talk about things like issues with the Black community, as well as things that have to do with wealth. It's like You can't talk about these things without talking about relationships, because what people don't know is that your ability to sustain healthy relationships is an important part of your wealth building process. If you get divorced, the average divorcee's wealth drops by about 77%. So if you are married and you're building a business with your partner and the relationship doesn't work out, then you're not going to really build a great business. Because you know why? Well, the reason you're not is because you're going to spend all your time in court, all your money's going to go to lawyers, you're going to spend all your time stressed out, you're going to spend all your time arguing, and you're not going to get anything done. So healthy relationships are a very important part of the wealth building process. Most big wealth, most massive wealth throughout the world, $1 billion families that got 100 million in the bank or whatever, those families accumulate that wealth through marriage. They marry and form unions that lead to massive empires, and they might be like, look, I can't stand your ass, and the sex is really bad right now, and we doing what we doing, but we're gonna stay married because we are a unit. I remember, and again, I'm not telling you how to handle it. I'm not giving anybody any mandates on how they should handle their relationship. So don't run around and say Dr. Boyce told me to do this and do that. No, I'm not telling you nothing. I'm sharing information so you can make your own decision. But I still remember when somebody asked Jesse Jackson's wife about all the stuff, that the scandals with him, because he got his little history. I'm not gonna talk bad about Reverend Jackson because I love the man. He don't live too far away. But and she said something that was real interesting, very definitive. And she said, "I'm gonna say this one time: there will be one Mrs. Jackson, and that's it." And so she was like, "Look, like I'm not, like yeah, I know you, like, girl, how you gonna let a man do that to you?" And she, I mean, maybe her attitude is like, I'm not trying to go start over at the age of 55 because of this thing over here. I like being married to Jesse Jackson. Now again, it's not to say that she was right or wrong with her decision, but I think that sometimes we make these decisions in this very strange vacuum. And one of the things I observed, when I just look and analyze how relationships go and what happens with people when they form these unions and they don't work out, is it seems like when I read divorce papers, especially celebrity divorces, it's like always the same reason. There's always the same thing. Irreconcilable differences in infidelity all the time, especially when a woman's married to, say, a powerful man, wealthy man, famous man, or whatever. And some of these guys, I'm looking at, like, I'm like, she didn't think that he was ever going to cheat. You married Lil Wayne, girl. Like, what you think Lil Wayne gonna be doing with his penis? Like, did you really? I mean, you really signed up thinking that Lil Wayne was gonna. And I talked to a young lady about that who was a teenager, and I asked her. I said, you think Lil Wayne's cute? She said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, so if you were with him, do you think that he would be faithful? She said, yeah, he'd probably be faithful for me. I said, but this man got 2 girls pregnant at once. You think he'd be faithful? She said, yeah. Well, I think I could probably change him. And I was like, I don't think you could really change Lil Wayne. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think maybe changing your point of view and realizing what you're signing up for might be a better approach, as opposed to expecting something that doesn't seem to match reality. So anyway, Shadi says, "What are you saying, that all men cheat?" I'm gonna answer your question in a minute. You're trying to ask questions that's gonna get us all in trouble, get every brother on the thread in trouble. But I did see somebody. Alicia asked, "Are you married?" And I think that's a great question, because people ask me that question. And I had that conversation with Tempest Blitz. So remember Tempest from the Cosby Show? And I sat down. I'm gonna tell you this, and then I'm gonna answer your question, Alicia. I promise. So Tempest and I sat down with Tempest and the brother that played Ron, Daryl Bell. We sat and talked for hours. Like, we had 2 lunches. I love Tempest and Daryl so much. I mean, just the coolest people ever. And I had forgotten that they had a relationship. So I met Daryl, and me and Daryl sat down, and it was like long lost brothers. We talked for 2 hours, and then a lady walked up, and I didn't recognize her, and I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And she said hello and sat down, and he said, "Dr. Boyce, this is my better half, Tempest." And I was like, "Oh, wait, Tempest Bledsoe. Oh, from the Cosby Show." So I loved him. I mean, the sweetest people ever. I'm not kidding. So anyway, we were talking about relationships, and interestingly enough, she even brought up some advice that Felicia Rashad had given her about women dealing with men. And she said, if she compared it to a chessboard, and she said, if you understand the essence of your womanhood, you realize that as a woman, you don't have to behave like a man to have power in your relationship. She said that on a chessboard, the queen is the one with all the power. The king can't move without the queen's permission, right? And so I thought about it. I said, wow, that's really good. And then she kept talking and gave like some of the best advice. And I said, this is great. I said, are you going to do a show? Like, I think you should do a show. You should give advice to young women so they can understand where their power lies. Because what you're doing right now is what I try to do with my girls, but I don't do it very well because I'm not a woman. I can give it from a man's perspective, but not from a woman's perspective. And one point she brought up, which goes to your point, Alicia, is she said, well, I would do that, but people then ask me, like, well, they'll say something like, well, what do you know? You're not married. And I say, yeah, but you have a successful 20-year relationship. And she said, yeah, but people put a lot of weight on that label. And I said, yeah, you're right about that. And so that point that you made, Alicia, and I'm not saying your question was loaded. I mean, maybe you're just asking out of curiosity, but I have people that will say that, like, why, well, how can you say X, Y, Z if you've never been married? And I will say, as far as marriage goes, the closest I got to being married is I did propose to a wonderful woman 10 years ago. I proposed to her actually on the Wendy Williams show on radio. And I love this woman so much that I wanted the whole world to know that I'm taken. I'm taken. Don't even try to holler. Don't, because we know how Wendy would do. Wendy's all gossipy and stuff. She's smart, but she can be messy. So she was like, "So Dr. Boyce, you're an eligible bachelor and you're a professor. So tell the ladies, what do you?" She would do all that stuff, and I was like, let's not even do that. I don't even want those temptations. Like, I love this woman, and I'm gonna bring her out here, and in fact, I proposed to her on the air, and it was something I had thought about doing before, but I just, I went through it and it was great. It was awesome. And it didn't work out. I'm not going to go into her business cause I don't want to embarrass her, but, it didn't work out for like religious reasons. She was in a religion that didn't, I don't think, really support the union that we had. And so, those divides happen. So, but long story short, she was an awesome woman. I would never say a bad word about her. And what I loved about her, what I respected about her, was that she had the ability to use her powers as a woman without being aggressive, without feeling like she had to grow a pair of testicles. And that's the thing. Like, I think, there's a way to talk to a man that a lot of young girls don't ever get. They don't learn this because they never had a chance to have a man in the house. So sometimes they might feel that to talk to a man, I gotta act like a man, or I gotta be aggressive like a man, or if I get frustrated with men, I have to behave in a certain kind of way, and it doesn't always work because I think men can see you as either an ally or as an enemy. And if you come in there like balls on the table, like berating him and going hard, then he's going to see you like another dude. He's not going to see you as his confidant and his support system. He's going to see you as a competitor. And I don't. And the thing is, I never wanted to be married to another dude. Like I don't want. I'm not gay. I don't want to marry. I don't want to be around a dude. I want to be around a woman. And so I think that's what makes me feel bad for women that never get a chance to be around a man, is because there's just little subtleties that you learn, little, like, even with my mother. Like, I just think about the man I would be if my mother wasn't around. If I didn't have my mother in the house, there are a million lessons I never would have learned about how to talk to a woman. Like, I remember my father, um, you know, just kind of being patient when my mother was in a bad mood. Or we'd be sitting out in the car, hot, waiting for my mama to get out the grocery store. I'd be like, "Hey, Daddy, Mama said she was gonna run right in and run out. What's going on?" He's like, "Look, your mama needs to get her stuff, so just be patient." And you would just learn that there's just ways to kind of things that women like to do, or things that about women that don't make any sense as a man. And I would never have learned those things if my mother had not been in the house. If it had just been me and my father, we would have probably sat around, watched football, and maybe drank beer, had a messy house, like, and women would probably have a different, we'd have a different perspective on women. Let me just say that. You might see a woman as somebody who could come over every now and then and cook the food, or maybe somebody you could have sex with. It would be an accessory more so than a necessity for the household. And I think that my respect for women would be a lot lower, because it would either be much lower, or it would be at a level that was unrealistic. Like, I would either be looking for a woman to be a replacement for my mother, or I would look at a woman as just something that you use to get what you need, right? And so I've seen that with some women who didn't have their father. They would either fantasize about the perfect man coming along and replacing the daddy that they never had, which might put them in a vulnerable position with a lot of men, or they would see the man as like an accessory. Like, I need you to be the sperm donor so you can send me child support money and pay for the baby, but beyond that, I really don't need you for anything else. And I will say that if a man doesn't feel like he's needed, then a man isn't going to want to stay. And so, or he's going to feel like it's okay to leave. Or you'll see guys that didn't have the father in the house, and they don't know what a father does. So they kind of feel like, and they remember their mother held it down and did everything. So they're like, well, why do I need to be here? Like, I can just go, and you and the baby are going to be fine. Now, I'm not saying that's crazy or wrong. Maybe it's just a new way of seeing the world. But I would just say that we have to be realistic about what we're looking for. So anyway, moving on to the question. I think somebody asked a question about. Somebody else asked an interesting question. Let me see here. Oh, Shawnee says, "Are you saying that all men cheat?" I don't. I would never say that. I would never say all men or all people cheat. First of all, I think that we got to realize like women cheat too. A lot of women cheat. We just see it differently. Women on average, not everyone. You can't generalize everybody, but typically society has a almost a framework where we see a woman's infidelity as something that must be deeper than just she just wanted another penis or she just wanted to be with another man, right? We see it as, oh, he must have done something wrong to lead to her infidelity, right? So she doesn't have to feel labeled as being like disloyal. She's seen as someone who had a void, who had something that was missing. Another man came along and filled the void. So ultimately, the only reason she cheated was because she had to, because her man was neglecting her, right? Whereas I think for men, you also see the infidelity, but you see it kind of, I think, occurring for different reasons, but also being seen in a different light. I think that people don't realize sometimes men have voids. Sometimes men are like, man, she's not, she's not having sex with me anymore because she's not talking to me, or I feel neglected, or she doesn't like me, she doesn't respect me, or whatever. And again, it doesn't excuse that behavior at all, but I've seen a lot of cases where that is true. But then again, sometimes people cheat just because they want something different. And I think that men and women are very different. I think that if you really want to understand human behavior, I think it's best to look at study. Like there's this professor who does behavioral anthropology. His name is Professor Robert Sapolsky. He's at Stanford University. He's one of the world's most renowned neuroscientists. He's got a lot of labels. He's just a smart old white dude, and he talks about animals a lot and compares them to humans because he said basically the human brain is 95% the same as the animal brain. So a lot of the things that we respond to as humans are similar to what animals respond to. And one of the things that he talked about is that you have two types of species in the animal kingdom. You have the species that they call the trophy species, and you have the pair bonded species. The trophy species are the ones where they have what they call dimorphism, where the males are much bigger than the females. So the ways that the males attract the females is very different. Like for example, in the trophy species, the males attract the females by fighting other men and showing that they're the strongest. Like the peacock would have the biggest, most colorful feathers, or the elephants might go and fight over territory. Whoever got the most territory gets the most women, etc. A pair bonded species, the males attract the females not by competing, but by providing. They'll go, and buy, get some worms or whatever, and bring the worm to the female, and the female will say, "Oh, thank you for the worm. The worm was delicious. You can come by tomorrow night if you want to." And then also the difference between the trophy species and the pair bonded is that the trophy species, you have a lot of single mothers. The males don't hang out after they have the baby because they're busy, reproducing. In fact, 5% of the males produce 95% of the offspring. So you have these alphas that they're doing is they're just like bucks. They just run around reproducing, meeting women, having sex with them, and moving on to the next one. Whereas pair bonded, they stay together and they raise the kids together. And the pair bonded, again, they don't have the dimorphism, which is the difference in height or size between males and females. And so there's more like almost like a gender equity, kind of like what maybe some feminists kind of push for, where men and women are similar. Whereas in dimorphism, they're clearly different. The males are really big, the females are very small, and their mating patterns are different. And what he said is that he can tell everything about a species' mating habits by looking at the size of the male compared to the size of the female. Also, in the pair bonded group, the females also tend to cheat more. Because because they know they have somebody to take care of the baby, so the little bird will fly out of the nest and go sleep with another bird and then come back, or you'll see a case where a woman will be pregnant and the male will think it's his baby, and she won't tell him any different because she doesn't want him to like hurt the baby or anything. And so it was interesting kind of comparing that to human beings. And I remember thinking about humans, and he said that basically my interpretation of his analysis of where humans fit is that we have the capability of being both. We can be a trophy species. Sometimes we can also be pair bonded, and maybe even in the same person you have the contradiction. And what it made me think about is how you might have say a woman who wants a certain kind of man as her husband, but may have a desire to just sleep with another kind of man, right? So she might see the little chubby guy in the minivan as like, okay, that's my husband because he got a good job, he's gonna take care of the kids, he's gonna be my life partner. But then there's this big muscular guy who ain't worth shit really, other than in the bedroom, and he's not that smart, he's not that fun to hang, not, or maybe he's fun to hang out with, but he's not a partner. He's probably gonna do you dirty. But you might go see him, or he might be the guy that you invite over in the middle of the night or whatever, and don't tell nobody, right? Because everybody lies about what they're doing in the bedroom. I just assume everybody lies about that. So long story short, not that I'm pretending to be a relationship expert. I'm really like just a 45-year-old man who has seen some things and who thinks a lot and who has read a lot of stuff, and that's what I'm sharing with you. I'm not pretending. But the way I see it, look, if Steve Harvey can give relationship advice, then I can too. And my advice is not meant to be funny. It's just meant to be realistic based on what I've observed. And so I think about this stuff a lot. I mean, I studied this stuff and how the things work out. And I'm like, this is so interesting. You had these two people 2 years ago who loved each other to death, who went before the world, declared their love, would have fought you if you told them that their relationship wasn't gonna last. But now 2 years later, they hate each other's guts. They want to kill each other. They have nothing good to say about each other. And it's so interesting. I was just always so fascinated with how human beings can go from there to there, or how many people there are who have children with people that they hate, right? People they can't stand, that they despise. Because you obviously didn't hate each other when you made the baby, right? So I'm like, what causes that? How does that operate? And I think kind of figuring that out within yourself is a very important part of your success, because if you can figure out how to balance that, because obviously you're operating on some very primitive instincts. Like we all are. The majority of what drives us as human beings is actually the subconscious. The subconscious is the keys to the kingdom. That's what formulates all your habits. That's what makes you do stuff where later on you're like, what was I doing? That was so stupid. But yet you didn't go do it again, right? So understanding how to balance that with what you need to be doing in order to get where you need to get to, that's a big part of success. In fact, there was a study, and I'm actually creating a lecture about this for my class in the Black Business School. And before I forget, before I actually tell you this, don't forget, do this right now. Write down drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. If you go there, you can get a free e-copy of my book. It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, A New Paradigm for Black America. So go there and get the free ebook at drboycewatkins.net. Also, if you like this conversation, please share it to your feed. Everybody, please, each one teach one. Please share this with anybody you think can benefit from this information. And then finally, in the comment section of this post, you can actually go by Hidden Colors, the Hidden Colors set from Tariq Nasheed, who created what I think was one of the greatest Black films of all time. So anyway, so the link is in the post. So let's go back. So let me tell you about this. Okay, so they did an experiment at Stanford. I think they call it the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. And what they did was they had some little kids where they tested impulse control. They gave them a marshmallow. They put them in an empty room for 15 minutes and let them and basically let the kid gave the kid a choice. They said, look, you can either eat the marshmallow now, or in 15 minutes when I come back, you'll get 2 marshmallows. So, and they put them in an empty room so they would have nothing to think about except the marshmallow in front of them. And they would watch how the kids would respond. They would sit on their hands, they would sing to themselves, they would move the marshmallow away, not look at it. They would just do whatever they had to do to wait to get the 2 marshmallows. And what they were doing was testing their ability to delay gratification and to control their impulses. And so they put them in 2 different categories based on their reaction and what they did. And they found that the kids who were able to wait were more successful in almost every measuring stick of life. They were healthier. They had more education. They had higher SAT scores. They did better financially. Their marriages lasted longer. All of these things because they had the ability to control their impulses. So in your own life, if you want to be successful, you've got to learn how to control your impulses. You cannot become a victim of your own decisions, right? A lot of us, it's almost like our dreams get murdered and we are the executioner on a regular basis because we can't control the difference between what we need to do and what we want to do. So if you want to know why I've been fascinated with things like relationships, it's because I noticed how making like bad choices in that area can throw everything else off. I know people, I have friends who've been murdered by their partners, by their spouse. or by their boyfriend or girlfriend. I mean, it's crazy to me, so you can't disconnect that from everything else. Like, you can't sort of say I want to climb to the top of the corporate ladder, or I want to build the biggest company in the world, but yet you out here dating people that are going to mess you up or throw you off your game. People that are going to be disruptive to everything you're trying to do, because a destructive person in your life will be a destructive person in your life. It's very hard to quarantine the person that you get into bed with. And I tell my daughters all the time, I say, look, your womb is the most precious thing in the universe. You don't share that with a piece of shit. You don't share your womb with a guy who doesn't deserve it. But if the self-esteem ain't there, you just happy because he called you cute, or he gave you some attention. I mean, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for them, and so I don't condemn. I mean, because sex and love are very powerful forces. You can't act like you're smarter than God and Mother Nature. I truly believe that. But at the same time, you got to control that somehow, or you'll end up with a bunch of very confusing situations that kind of throw you off. Somebody mentioned the Reverend Jackson's a Q, and I guess that has to do with his mistakes. I don't know. I'm not gonna judge all the Qs. There's probably some Qs on here watching, but I will say that I almost pledged every fraternity. The closest I came to pledging was actually with the Qs. I don't think they wanted me to pledge because I was like, a wonderful person or the coolest guy on the block. I wasn't cool. I was nerdy. If you're a woman on here, you probably wouldn't have liked me in college. You'd have been like, oh man, this guy's a joke. He's a geek. He's studying all the time. Now I guess I'm cuter now because I have a little money or whatever. But I ain't never been a cool guy. I'm the nerd, and I am proud of it. But I got invited to pledge every single fraternity in college at the University of Kentucky, and I was and they asked me to pledge, I think because my grades were good, and I guess because I would have boosted the GPA. I had the highest GPA on the entire of all the black students on campus, and most of the white students too. And also, I got 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years, and I was working 2 full-time jobs. So I was in there. I was getting it. I was pushing. I was grinding. I wasn't playing around because I wasn't playing around with my future. I wasn't gonna let my future be mediocre, and I knew that mediocre effort creates mediocre outcomes. I was like, I don't want to have an average life. I want to have something special. And so I almost pledged every. I thought about every frat. Like, I imagined myself as an alpha when I got invited to pledge the alphas. I imagined myself as a sigma. When I got asked, my friend Daryl asked me to pledge sigma. My friend Gerald asked me to pledge alpha. Wait, was Gerald an alpha? No, Gerald was a kappa. Gerald was a kappa. Jason asked me to pledge alpha. That's it. So Jason, Gerald, and Daryl asked me to pledge those 3 frats, and then my roommate Aaron asked me to pledge Q. He didn't ask me. We talked about it, and he was a Q. And the thing was, I almost did it, and I got 1 day away from pledging, and it kind of hit me. I just saw the guys that I was gonna be spending all this time with, and at the age of 20 or 21, I just had an epiphany. I said, if I'm around these guys, I'm not going to be the same person that I am right now, because unfortunately, and this does not condemn the entire Mega Sci-Fi organization by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. But the guys that I knew who were in that fraternity, most of these guys were doing stuff that I was like, that's going to be very bad for you in your life. I mean, you're not supposed to sleep with that many girls and have all of y'all sleep with the same one. You're not supposed to drink that much because drinking that much will kill you. You're supposed to actually study a little bit. And these guys, they just really wasn't into nothing. They wasn't about nothing. I don't want to, I went to visit one of my friends. And again, this ain't condemning the Qs. It happens everywhere. But I'm talking about these particular Qs in that particular era. Now, I'm not talking about no other Qs or no other campus. So don't nobody take this the wrong way. But these particular guys gave the fraternity a very bad name. Let me just say that. I remember going to visit one of my friends, and it was 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we walked in the room. The room was dark, and it was like a bunch of dudes sleeping everywhere, and the room was filled with like chicken and liquor. I'll never forget that. And I'm like, man, like, to me, again, at 21, trying to figure out life, what it means to be successful, I was like, well, it seems to me that if you want to be successful, you shouldn't be sleeping until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or drinking all night long. You're supposed to be working. You're supposed to be building something, and and it bothers me that so many of us think that that's normal, like campus life, normal campus behavior, and that's not. That's how you behave if you want to be mediocre. Like if you don't want your life to amount to shit, then yeah, absolutely, just sit around and drink all the time. Then yeah, you'll get exactly what you're looking for. But if you really want to build something, you got to commit to the idea of not being ashamed of being a hardworking person. I as a kid, I remember feeling ostracized for being a consistent, hardworking black man, and the only reason I stuck with it was because I was already not, I already didn't have a lot of friends anyway. So I was like, well, screw it. I mean, I don't need to be your friend regardless. I don't know where the confidence came from, but I was like, well, I don't care if y'all don't like me. I don't care if y'all think I'm a nerd. I'm going to go out here. I'm going to do something different and special. Guess what? When I become really successful, all y'all going to want to be my friend. And that's exactly what happened. All those people now brag about the fact that they knew me back in college, and I don't hold no ill will toward them. I felt sorry for them because I was raised by a man. I was raised by a strong black man who taught me that when you want to go out here and you want something in this world, you go fight for it. You go fight for it. And you if you want more than everybody else, you got to hustle harder. Period. And so you can't sort of make mediocre decisions and have an extraordinary life. It's not going to work. Now let me see here. Um, yeah, Lena says control your impulsive behavior. I can wait for the best. Yes, you can, but don't wait forever. I met one lady who said she was waiting, and she was a 32-year-old virgin. I said, girl, you're gonna be menopausal in a couple years or a few years. Like, don't wait forever. You're supposed to, sex. It's not a crime to have sex. Let's see here. Chris says, "What's up, OG Boyce?" I guess I'm an OG now. I guess you get past 40, you become an OG. It's okay. I embrace that. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay. Anicia says geeks are cool guys. Well, then I might be the coolest guy you ever met. I was a proud geek. I wasn't trying to be cool. I'm not good at that. I'm just proud. I'm just good at being who I am. And that's the type of coolness I believe. Is being really confident in who you are. Like Biggie. Like Biggie would be like, he would talk about his appearance. He was like, I'm fat, I'm dark, I'm this, and this. And he made it beautiful, and that's the thing. You got to love who you are. You can't be nobody else. So don't try to be somebody else. Let's see here. Okay, so Miriam asks, what do you think about Ralph Richard Banks' book, Is Marriage for White People? How the African American marriage decline affects everyone. I haven't read that book, but what I think people don't understand when they talk about black people not getting married as much and not staying married is that a lot of this was social engineering by white people. The mass incarceration epidemic absolutely obliterated the African American marriage rate because what it did was it created an imbalance in the ecosystem amongst black men and black women. Because what it did was it put so many of our strongest, most intelligent black men in prison that a lot of women can't find a husband because their husband's locked up. And what it does too is there's an article in The Economist. Go read The Economist. These are British white people who were writing about the decline in marriage rates amongst African Americans. This is how awkward that was, and they talked about it from an honest perspective about how incarceration affects this. They said that there is a 2% decline in the percentage of black women who get married for every 1% increase in the incarceration rate. And so if you want, and I visited a lot of prisons. I visited Mario Lloyd, who was the father of Maria Lloyd. Maria Lloyd was the lady I mentioned earlier who started all that craziness with Umar Johnson. She's on our team, but I love her. Maria's a cool lady, and I don't I don't regret at all letting her use our platform for that. But anyway, Mario Lloyd. He got 14 life sentences in prison in the 80s for selling cocaine, and they didn't have any murders on him, they didn't catch any drugs on him, but they got a conspiracy charge. So they incarcerated him and his whole entire family. And so when I was there, I just saw all these black men, all these men, and that were, where I saw guys that could have been doctors, lawyers, husbands, fathers, all kinds of things, but they're locked away in prison. And what it does is The Economist explained how it changes not just the raw numbers, but it changes everybody's reactions to the numbers. Let's say you have 20 girls and 20 boys in a room, and every girl can meet a boy, every boy can meet a girl. And then let's say you change that environment and you change it to where there's 10 boys and 20 girls. Well, that's going to change it's not just going to change the numbers, it's changing everybody's behavior. So the girls are going to, if they all feel like they need a boy, their behavior is going to adjust. They're going to wear the skirt's going to be a little shorter. They're going to be willing to do a little bit more to get a man. They might be willing to share a man. Some of them might date a woman instead or whatever. The same thing, the boys. The boys going to be like, wait, I'm the pick of the litter. I can have any girl I want. There's 20. Look at how many girls. There's 2 girls for every boy. What I got to work hard to keep this woman for? Why? I ain't got to impress her. I got 10 more waiting just like her, right? And so basically they said that it shifts everything. It shifts. It's like supply demand. It's all, and that's why they were able to analyze it, because dating is a market, just like a market for cars, like a market for jobs, a market at the grocery store. It's a market. You have supply and demand. When supply and demand are out of whack, it shifts things. If you have a product that's in the market and suddenly the supply drops, what's going to happen? The price is going to go up. The price that people pay is going to go up. It's going to get harder to get that commodity. So educated black men, unfortunately, marriable black men, have become a rarer commodity, which makes it tougher to kind of grab one and hold on to one. So you'll see some women settling for men who really don't deserve them. But these men are like, well, you ain't going to do no better than me. And we have a rule in our society that says there should be one woman for every man. And so what happens is, especially for people, the millennials have it real bad, because a lot of the men are not raised really to be men. The culture for a lot of the young men has gotten so warped that you got a whole lot of dudes that are gay who wouldn't have been gay if they'd had a strong father in the house. I really believe that. A lot of them were maybe molested by their mother's boyfriends or whatever. So they down there in Atlanta trying to wear high heels. You got a lot of men that grew up thinking they were supposed to be a thug. So they listen to the radio and acting like young thug. And that man, he might be cool when you're 22, 23, but he's not going to be cool when you're 32, 33 trying to raise kids. You don't want your children raised by a pants sagging thug. Not to say that makes him automatically a bad man. So I'm not dissing people who sag, but I'm saying that if he's into that culture and he's trying to be a 30-something-year-old father and almost a grandfather, he's not going to be typically a lot of times as effective as somebody who has it together and understands the responsibility of manhood. So I'm not dissing anybody who sags. So if you sag, don't think I'm saying that you're a less worthy human being or that that's all that matters. But unfortunately, it's like certain kinds of men just are not as readily available as they used to be. And I think what makes it harder for black women is that many black women are raised with a kind of stern responsibility that their mother puts on them. Even if the father's gone most of the time, the mother's there, and the mother's, the girls grow up with this sort of very strong female role model who really forces them to have a higher standard for themselves. So it's almost like if I was raised by my dad with my mother not being there, sure, I wouldn't really know how to relate to women, and my sister would lose in certain ways because she wouldn't learn the subtleties of womanhood. But I would actually still have a man I can look at and say, okay, this is what a successful man is supposed to do. So I think at the end of the day, what you end up having is you end up having these women that are really successful. I mean, black women are really super successful, and it's very difficult because it's harder for them to find black men to marry, and because black men are just the most desirable men on the planet. I know a lot of women who can't really ever be attracted to a white man in that way. So what I see, honestly, when I'm looking around, is I see a lot of scenarios where people are sharing a man they don't even know that they're sharing, because nobody really talks about it. Nobody really says like who are you having sex with this week, and then when you ask them, a lot of times they lie anyway. And it kind of becomes sort of sad. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but it's kind of messy. In fact, a lot of young people, from what I heard a lot of people in their 20s, they don't even date anymore. Like, they don't even date. They don't even know what it's like to have a man who says, "Will you go out with me? And I'm gonna pick you up, and I'm gonna take you to dinner, and can we go on another date?" Like, they don't even know that anymore. Like, that blew my mind. Like it's like, oh no, let's just get Netflix and chill and have sex, and let's not label anything. One time I got in so much trouble because there was a guy I saw who had this really pretty girl next to him. She was like a doctoral student, and I met him at some gathering, and I was like, and they looked so much like a couple, and I said something like, I said, I said, you two are a couple, huh? And I got in trouble. Like, they were like, no, don't ask. You don't ask if they're a couple. They don't ask. And they were like, well, yeah, well, blah, blah. And I got this sense that the woman wanted to be a couple, but he didn't, right? And it was just kind of interesting to sort of see that dynamic. Because I mean, she seemed pretty, she seemed smart, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess people are changing. I'm not dissing it. It just is what it is. Let's see here. Okay, so Keisha says, it happens sometimes. You have to step aside and focus on you. Otherwise, it's an upward battle to restore yourself. I always tell young folks, discipline yourself now. and the ones left behind will still. I can't see the rest because the question's a little long, and I can't. If I hit the button to see more, it'll it'll end up I'll end up hitting the wrong thing because I got these big fingers and I end up messing up stuff. But I agree with you. I think that generally speaking, when you talk about success, and we actually have a class on success, goal setting, overcoming obstacles, etc. And I teach this myself. There's tons of content because you can see I'm full of just all kinds of information on this stuff. It's called Black Keys to Greatness. You can go to blackkeystogreatness.com. That's blackkeystogreatness.com and check it out. The first month is free, and I really think you're gonna like it because it's the kind of stuff that I wish somebody had told me when I was growing up. Like sometimes I really wish, and this gonna sound so stupid, but sometimes I'd be like, man, I wish I could have been my own dad. Not that my dad wasn't a cool dude. He just some stuff I did he didn't quite get. Like he didn't really get the whole like want to be a professor thing. He's more of a meat and potatoes, nuts and bolts type dude. He was a cop for 25 years, real strong guy, military guy, and I love him. But he wasn't quite like me. But I wish I had a dad like me because there's so many things I figured out over time that I wish I'd known when I was 22, or maybe even 12. Because it would have saved me a lot of grief. It would have helped me overcome a lot of things. I would have realized that you shouldn't pick permanent solutions to temporary problems. A lot of us do permanent damage to our lives over something that's very temporary. Like I saw a poor guy who killed himself over a girl. And the thing is, if you read about relationships and how that stuff works, it's just basically you have some sort of chemical addiction to this other person. Like internally, it's only you really are addicted to that person because you have chemical reactions when they're around, but it goes away. Eventually, it dissipates, and if you just wait a few weeks, you're gonna be all right. But a lot of people don't feel that way. They feel like the pain's gonna last forever, and then they do something like kill themselves, and it's like that's kind of sad because in a year you would have probably been fine. You would have moved on and met somebody else. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's see. Uh, Danielle says you're very wise, Dr. Watkins. Well, I appreciate you saying I'm wise because people either tell me that I'm wise or they tell me that I'm stupid. It all depends. But then sometimes the people who tell me I'm stupid come back later and say you were actually wise and I just didn't know it. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm wise or stupid. I just know that I figured some stuff out and I like to share it. Like I'll tell you a secret. I love it when people tell me like you're like the older brother I never had, or the father I never had, or the mentor I never had. I like that. I embrace that because I think that's a solution for the Black community. I think that we need fatherhood by committee. And I told Damon Dash this. I said a lot of these guys and these young ladies, they see us as like dads, and it's not fun. It's not fun to feel like the old guy, but at the same time, I'm like, this is a huge opportunity. We have big platforms. We are technically famous. We both been on shows like The Breakfast Club and CNN and all that stuff, and we have this influence, and let's use it for something that's going to really change people's lives. I had a guy that messaged me and told me literally that he was going to kill himself. He had a knife to his stomach and he saw my video. He said, I happened to open my computer and see your video, and he said that saved my life. That kept me from killing myself. And when I heard that and a couple of other stories like that, that really told me like this is real, this is meaningful, this is important, this is not stuff I should just look at as, oh, I'm going to be in front of people. See, because I think there's a lot of people I see who just want to be on TV, who just want to be famous. And to me, it's like, yeah, that's nice, but you should use your fame. If you have any type of fame, you should use it for a reason. Really change somebody's life. Like the best compliment I get when I get to go out, when I go to different cities, is when people come up and they say, I changed my life because of you. I raised my kids different because of you. You changed my whole life. I'm a whole different person because of you. I'm like, exactly. That's what I want. I don't want you to be like, yeah, Dr. Boy, I love that's the guy from TV. He's on the Real House Husbands or what, you know what I mean? Like he's the famous guy on television and blah 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 blah. Like that wouldn't mean anything to me. And I told this to Mark Lamont Hill a long time ago. Mark and I are friends. We fight, but we're still friends. I love that guy. Mark is very sharp. I don't agree with half the shit he says. Some of it I think is crazy, but I love him. I think he's a brilliant guy. And I just told Mark, I said, 10 years ago, we had this conversation. I said, I don't want to be famous just to be famous. Like, what the hell does that mean? That don't mean nothing. I want to be famous just because I'm on TV. You want people to know you because you stand for something. I said, I don't care if you like me or you don't like me, but you're going to know what I stand for. When you hear my name, you're going to be like, okay, that's the motherfucker I can't stand because he believes this. Or that's the guy I love because he believes that. And that's it. So in your life, I just really encourage you to stand for something. Let people know what you stand for. Not many people in this world today stand for nothing. They stand for making money. They stand for getting likes and shares on their Facebook page, or they stand for doing whatever it takes to be popular. That's stupid to me. That's very shallow. It's very pathetic. People, don't appreciate depth anymore. They don't, they don't appreciate, like good deep conversations. Like just sitting, getting, like you see, people will get together and they'll have really heavy sex, and that's fine. Go if you want to go have sex, go do it. But what's even better is to get together with somebody and just be deep. Just have deep conversations about deep issues and really think and have transformative discussions where you're really exploring the depths of your feelings, how the world works, all the things that allow you to feel more enlightened and fulfilled as a human being. Because when you get deep with yourself and you know who you are, your life is 10 times more rewarding. Everything that you do has meaning. You're not doing things because other people told you to do them. You're doing them because it connects with something bigger than just the moment, right? So I encourage you, be deep and have fun with it. And that's what life is all about. That's a richness that a lot of people don't have. You don't get that richness from just making a lot of money or getting up and going to work every day, getting up, going to work, coming home, going to bed, getting up, going to work, coming home, going to bed, going to the next party, and this and this. Half those people at those damn parties, I picked up on this in college. Most of the people I know who would go to those parties will be bored off out of their fucking minds. They will be bored to death. They'd be sitting there just holding a drink, trying to look cute, trying to look good, trying to look fly, whatever, and bored. I'm like, how do you do this? This is so boring. There's nothing. I mean, well, seriously, I think there's more to life than that. Anyway, let's move on. Veronica says, I love the purple. You are a cool geek. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see. Veronica understands me. Let's see. William Ward says, Dr. Boyce, you're the man. Love your videos. Oh, thank you, brother. What do you think about putting your face on flyers, particularly when you provide a service and potentially attract white customers? You know, I would say that, from a business standpoint, studies show that white people don't support black business. White people are less likely to buy from black people. White people are less likely to want to give loans to black. I mean, white people systematically, they just kind of suck in that way. I mean, they're not all. I'm not gonna say I don't believe that they all try to be bad people. I really don't believe that. But unfortunately, many of them are victims of white supremacy. They've been injected with this psychological disease that leads them to see us as less than human. Because the only way a good person can do something horrible to another person that they don't even know, who didn't do anything to them, is if they see that other person as less than human. That's the only thing. Because I was trying to think about it. I was like, what is it? How can a normal human being have a lynching party where they have somebody hanging from a tree and cut his balls off, and you're bringing your kids like it's a family picnic? Like, have you ever seen these lynchings that the white people used to do to us? It's sick. It's crazy. You're posing for pictures next to a dead person hanging from a tree. Do you know how ridiculously insane that is? And it's interesting because I was like, well, but how does that contradicts the fact that many of these people consider themselves to be good people, and for the most part, in many cases, they would be good people toward each other, right? They, you come over, they'd be like, oh, I baked you some cookies, and we're going to church on Sunday, and all the children are so beautiful, and let me get you a blanket. Have you eaten today? Right? Very nice to each other, right? So here's my conclusion. Here's my theory on it. This is my white people theory that I want to give to y'all. I want y'all to just think about this. My theory on why they could treat us this way, how they could look at an innocent black person who's never done anything to them and want to hurt that person, is that because they see us as animals, because they've always seen us historically as less than human, you don't feel so guilty about doing something to an animal. Like think about a pig. Think about a pig at a barbecue. Like, the pig is on the stick, and you can see his eyes, you see his face, and he's like got the thing in his mouth, and he's like, he's dead. He's getting cooked and roasted. But no one really thinks about the trauma of the pig. Nobody's thinking like, man, that poor pig. Like, that's horrible. How could you do that to a pig? Like, like, what kind of animal are you? That's so vicious, right? They don't do that, right? None of us does that. We're like, oh, it's a pig. Who cares, right? And I think that's how they see us. I think they see us the same way they see the pig. They don't see us at the same level as, say, a dog. Because a dog, white people are attracted to dogs and very connected to their dogs. And if you hurt a dog, if a police officer shoots a dog or if a dog gets killed and it becomes public, white people will lose their mind. They'll be protesting and fighting, trying to get people fired, all this other stuff. If a black man gets shot, I think they see a black man as subhuman and also as a threat to society. So when a black man gets killed, it's like, yeah, he probably did something wrong, or yeah, it wasn't right, but you know, he looks like he was probably doing something illegal anyway, or yeah, he's dead and it's sad, but you know, it's not like he was really gonna do anything with his life regardless, right? So it's easy for them to throw away a black life because they really don't. So black lives really don't matter to them. That's why it's important to say Black Lives Matter, because it's a very simple statement, but it's actually impactful in the sense that it contradicts the way Americans have behaved for the last 400 years. So, by the way, don't forget, look up in the comments section if you want to order the Hidden Colors set. Go to hiddencolors1234.com. That's hiddencolors1234.com. And it comes with this really cool lecture with Tariq Nasheed, where he actually talks about how he built his company. He came to visit the Black Business School. Also in the Black Business School, Dr. Claude Anderson's come through. I just talked to Dr. Anderson today. That is my man. He's my adopted grandfather. He and Minister Farrakhan, I told him today, I said, I adopted you and the minister as my granddaddies. Y'all are two of the men that I look up to as. Give me 1 second, guys. I lost my feed here. Okay, so my feed, I'm turning my feed back on Facebook. But I talked to Dr. Anderson today, and Dr. Anderson and I are actually going to do an event. We're going to start some stuff in DC. It'll probably be in August, and then if it works there in DC, we're going to go to some other places. If those of you who are on Facebook, I want to tell you that if that happens, if you're ever online with me and we're doing a feed and you lose me, just refresh the page maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, because I'll just restart the feed. So apparently Facebook Live only gives you like an hour, and I probably shouldn't be talking longer than an hour anyway, but it's, you know, today is a Sunday night and I'm just chilling, so I thought it would be fun to talk to you guys. And so anyway, I lost my point. See, that this is bad. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably like, well, are you going to finish your point? Maybe not, because I don't remember what it was I was going to say. Oh, so one thing I know I was going to say is that if you want to order the Hidden Colors series, go to hiddencolors1234.com. The URL is on the page. You can look on the page. And also, if you want to get a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, A New Paradigm for Black America, go to drboycewatkins.net, not .com. Go to .net. Now, Shakia says that this is a good topic. Juma says, peace, bro. How you doing, Juma? How many of y'all were on the other feed? Because I was talking to a whole bunch of people, and we lost our feed. So let me know if you were on the other feed. If you were on the other feed, you know, holler at your boy. If not, that's okay. I'm gonna put a little note for everybody who's on the other feed, because sometimes Facebook Live just shuts you down. It just stops, and you're like, wait a minute, you know, like you just stop working. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave them a comment and say, let's see, if you lost me, refresh the page. Okay. All right. So I put the comment in there. So we'll see how many people come back. So here's something I wanted to actually y'all gonna really laugh when I tell you this, but this is actually the topic